My name is Brian Lamb, and welcome, New York Knicks fans. We have a fantastic program laid out for you. This will be a lot of fun. We've got some incredible guests and panelists, many of which, of course, you will know exceptionally well. And I'm excited to get to them and start this conversation. But before I do, I just want to take a minute and tell you why we're here. We've got a chance to talk a lot today about generational wealth. And how do we create equitable opportunities for the Black community? The New York Knicks obviously care a tremendous amount about that, as does JP Morgan Chase. I'm the global head of diversity and inclusion at JP Morgan Chase. And a big reason that we wanted to partner is because we have a shared interest in doing the right thing and finding ways to continue to invest and uplift the Black community. Now, what's important is we sometimes have to find great partners that we can do that with. I think the New York Urban League is a perfect example of that, and we're proud to partner with them this month during Black History Month. Now, along with the $25,000 donation, there's so much more that we'd like to do with the New York Urban League. They're a great organization. You can find out more about them. Their website will be posted in the chat as well. One of the things that I think is important is to tell you a little bit about the panelists that you're going to hear from this evening. You know, what's important is they have a background and an experience that is important for all of us to learn a little bit from and about. They've got great stories they can share that crystallize the importance of why we have to do the right thing and find ways to support and invest in the Black community. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about those panelists. Let me introduce you to them because I think you're going to be as excited as I am, particularly New York Knicks fans and the city and the state of New York as well. So let me do this. Being an old basketball player myself, I was pretty excited to have this conversation and a big New York Knicks fan. The first person I want to tell you a little bit about is John Wallace. John joined the New York Knicks in 1996. John's so funny. About that time, I was still in college, man. I was playing ball in Florida, but I was a big fan of yours. And you were a lot of fun to watch and exciting. And quite frankly, you did a tremendous amount for the sport. So it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you. John has a lot going on right now. I mean, he's still very active on MSG Networks. He's got his own podcast, Power Forward, which he was a pretty good one, by the way, and is an executive board member for the Heavily Production Foundation. And John, listen, it's an honor. Thank you for being here with us.
Brian, thank you. I appreciate it.
You know, listen, this next guest is all too familiar to us. Julius Randle. Julius played in the 2013 McDonald's All-American game and the Jordan Brand Classic before heading to Kentucky, where he was pretty special. But I got to tell you, he's doing some even more amazing things right now. If you haven't seen the recent news, let's all congratulate Julius on being recognized by joining the All-Star team. Right? The All-Star game, being able to make that is a tremendous milestone. And frankly, Julius is well-deserved, man. We're proud of you. We're happy for you. And I can tell you right now, we got your back and we're supporting you. You know, Julius has got a great history and a great track record. We're honored to have him play with the Knicks. He joined in 2019, and he's going to be able to share some exciting perspective from us. And by the way, Julius, I was watching that game when you hit 44 points, man. I'm telling you. You showed out. I like that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And listen, we've got one other very important and inspiring panelist that's joined us. You know, our Assemblywoman, Alicia Hinman, who has played a very, very important role in New York, in the city of New York. She has for many years been a tremendous advocate and leader, particularly as you think about the education systems in the middle schools and the elementary schools. She's been able to bring real funding, you know, into the system, which we all know is very important. Over $30 million in capital funding and technology upgrades, facility improvements. If you think about the education system, Assemblywoman, my father was a school teacher for 40 years. I've got a deep level of respect for the work that you've done to try to improve the very systems that we know have for many years have systemic barriers and challenges. So thank you for leading the way and modeling the way for all of us.
Thank you.
It's great to have you. It's really good to have you. And so with that, one of the things I want to do is dive right in. I think we've got a great discussion. We've got an opportunity to hear from leaders that have lived it, that have made a difference, and quite frankly, are continuing to do so. So, John, I'm going to start with you. You know, born and raised in New York, you know the city, you know the state. You started your basketball career there. You know, look, you had a fantastic NBA career, but you and I know there's so much more to life, and you've been able to do that. And I'd love for you to just share a little bit of maybe some of the challenges while you were playing ball and kind of thinking about life after basketball, what you've been able to do, particularly as a Black man, you know, preparing yourself for the future, and what advice would you have for others to think about?
First of all, it's truly an honor and a blessing to be part of this panel today. That's first and foremost. And to be a part of this, celebration of Black History Month, along with MSG and Chase, is awesome to be a part of that. And my journey started like most journeys, and it's not just about sports. It's about instilling that work ethic at a very young age, and that carries you through the rest of your life. You know, the work, all the work I put in when I was 12, 13, 14, 15 is paying me now to this day. Like all that work. And that's what really what it's about. And I was never an all-star like Julius Randle. I never made the kind of money that you couldn't count, so to speak. So my money was very countable. And my money was always, I knew exactly how much I always had in my account at all times. There wasn't too many zeros that got me confused. And with that being said, when I was drafted to a team of consummate pros. I Patrick Ewing, Allen Houston, John Starks, those guys, Herb Williams, they took me up under their wing, and they showed me a lot of things, not about basketball. They really talked to me about life, about handling your money, about taking care of yourself, and about life after basketball, because that window of the basketball career window is constantly always closing, and there's some special people that have 20-year careers, but for the most part, you're going to have like a 5 to 7 year career in the NBA. Then it's onto the real world, which is I've been a part of since 2005. I've been in the real world with a job and working since 2005. And I set that up 3 years prior to me being out the league, because the writing was kind of on the wall. Like my playing time was dwindling. I wasn't playing as much. The new guys were coming in, and I was like, you know what? I better start figuring out some alternative plans, because the ball is starting to deflate a lot faster than I anticipated.
Yeah.
And because of the relationships I had with the New York Knicks, and I always treated people the way I wanted to be treated. The only job interview I've ever been on in my life was for the New York Knicks. I went to Dan Gladstone and Artie Bays. I got hired on the spot, started working that night, and I've been working for the Knicks since that day. And that's turned into, I have a glass consulting company that's branched off because of my relationship with the Knicks. That's turned into the MSG networks that I've been doing with the Knicks the last couple of years. And like the MSG family means so much to me. And I was able to, when my playing career was over, I was able to lean back on the team that drafted me. And now they're showing me how to become a worker, a businessman, and all that. Because I entered as a novice, and that's the one thing you gotta fill yourself with some humility, because you go from being one of the best in the world at your profession, at your sport, like one of the best in the world. Immediately I went to the business world, I was one of the worst. And it takes you gotta really swallow some humble pills and be able to accept that and be receptive to someone trying to teach you and bring you along. And guys like Brian Land, who was the company that did all the glass renovations at Garden, was an integral part of me becoming, into the glass world and a businessman, and able to attach myself to a very credible company that's been around for 130 years. And now I'm doing some apparel stuff with Gary and Trico, another company that's been around for 78 years. So I learned that if I'm able to attach myself to companies that have been around and have instant credibility, I don't have to work as hard to get that credibility, and I can focus on the relationship side of things, because that's what I'm really good at. And you got to know what you're good at. I focus on what I'm good at, and I know how to open doors from a relationship standpoint at all times.
John, listen, you got a great reputation, and I appreciate you sharing that background, and quite frankly, the part about humility.
That's right.
That's as an athlete, we were all really great players. You guys played at a whole different level. It's tough, and I think it's a great segue to talk about, shift over to Julius. Look, Julius, you're an all-star, man. You're blessed, and we're proud of you. We really, really are. I think I was reading a note where I think you found out about making the team. Did your mom call you?
No, my wife actually called me. She was trying to tell me. She was trying to tell me to stay off my phone. And I guess it had leaked everywhere, and I'm like, I'm trying to stay off social media and everything because I don't want to find out that way. And then she got mad because people start blowing me up, texting my phone. So she's like, she was kind of mad that she couldn't tell me, but she had already known. So it was fun.
It was all good, man. Well, listen, we're happy for you. But, to John's point, I'd love to hear a little bit from you because we're going to come to the Assemblywoman and talk a little bit about wealth and some of the decisions that we need to make that can hopefully help others. But as you think about kind of where you are today and you're competing at a high level, react to what you think. What are some of the responsibilities that you're thinking about today, right? Some of the things that you're doing today that can help you be prepared for the future, and any advice that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So I think a lot of times when you have kids, your responsibility changes. You start to think a lot more, less about yourself and more about your family and how you can, set them up. So, it's a lot different than being a 19-year-old kid in LA and just really worried about myself and the things that I might like or want. But for me, the biggest thing is saving. First off, it's not about counting your next check or your next contract. They try to say don't count your eggs before they hatch or whatever the saying is. But for me, it's first and foremost about saving. And one of the things I really learned is just educating myself. We all in the league, big thing is you have financial advisors or business people that you may run into. And for me, it's about educating myself on the things that I'm doing, not letting people just take control of your money or whatever it is and invest it in this and that. For me, and my financial advisor, he says it all the time. Like he's like, I'm probably the most person that's really into my business or what's going on, because I ask questions like, why are we doing this? Why do you suggest this? Why do you suggest that? The market looks like this today. What do you think about this? Or whatever it is. So it's really for me about educating myself, asking questions, seeing what's going on, and just trying to learn every day. It's crazy because we're so busy with the game of basketball and trying to better ourselves on the court that a lot of times, as players, you forget, to handle the things off the court, whether it's managing family time or, managing your money or whatever it is. And I try to have the balance of both. So as much as I can, I would say just educating myself, reading, on things or whatever it might be, just so I'm aware and really know what's going on and not caught slipping or anything.
Well, I tell you what, we don't want to get caught slipping, man. It's like a bad back screen. You don't want to get
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think about what you were describing around asking questions, learning.
Yeah.
Like as simple as that sounds, quite frankly, Julius, a lot of us aren't doing it, right?
Absolutely.
And so I appreciate you just being brutally honest that, look, I'm going to ask some questions.
Absolutely. And it was a big thing that I really have learned. God bless his soul. But I was fortunate enough to play. Like I said, I played with Kobe, and I went through a situation beginning of my rookie year where, I was just excited to finally fulfill my dream of being in the NBA. And, I had people working for me that I really wasn't educated on what they were doing. And you know, Kobe was like, no, bro, like you got to figure out what's going on. You got to hire the people that you want, that you trust, that you know, that you did the background study on, and that you are educated on. And I did a clean sweep, and you know, and I did that at 19 years old, which is really tough to really think about. But I did it at 19 years old, and hired people that I really trusted to work for me. I felt like had my best interest, and like most of all that I could trust. So you know, it's all learning experience, and like you said, it's educating yourself and learning every day. You can't learn enough.
Julius, you said a powerful word, education. And I think that tees up our assemblywoman who has a long-standing track record of investing in education, frankly, holding us all accountable to doing a better job around it. Assemblywoman, it is a pleasure to visit with you. You can hear from John and Julius, who told some pretty compelling stories around how they thought about it. And you got a very interesting vantage point I'd like to pull out, which is you spent a lot of time advocating and investing in education. And at the end of the day, it's really about trying to empower the Black community. I'd love for you to hear from you around kind of connecting those dots to why you are so passionate about education and what you think empowering the Black community looks like to help us close this racial wealth gap that we all know we need to address.
Well, thank you very much. I am passionate about education, and one of the catalysts for that has been my father, who made sure he got his GED while I was in high school because he wanted to make sure he got it before I did. And so one of the things that I think I've heard everyone say, Jonathan, Julius, is that it requires work, and wealth requires work, and education requires work. Nothing was handed to us. All of us on this Zoom worked for it. And when the opportunity becomes available, the education, the training that you have widens those doors even more. So for a lot of us in communities in New York and around the country, we see an area that's underserved, and that is in our schools, that is in education. And knowing the value of education and how it opens up doors for so many, for me, it's where we should always be putting our money and our efforts behind. Because when I think about how I'm able to be an assemblywoman, it didn't happen overnight. It took work, it took education, it took making sure that now that the doors have been opened for me, that I have to hold the doors open for everyone else to level the playing field in our communities. Because a career in government or a career in banking or a career in the NBA is temporary. Whatever we do outside of that, our education, our morals, our values holds that up. So in the state of New York, and everyone knows, my colleagues know this, if there's any question you have really about education, a lot of them come to me, whether it be high school, elementary school, college, professional careers, whether it be medicine, dentistry, landscaping. It affects all of our lives. So it takes a good work ethic and knowing that you can't have wealth in our communities without having a good education. And where your tax dollars go, I was a parent, I am a parent still. I was a parent who said, if my children are going to public school, I want to make sure that they have the best education possible, not just for my kids, but for all children. Because at the end of the day, if my children are the smartest and none of their peers are elevated, then what good is that? And for me, being here in the assembly, working with my community and all communities of color across the state of New York is leveling the playing field for all of us to make it through the door. And I'm a strong believer that education does that for all of us.
I love it. Well, you know, you and I can tell some stories about our fathers. My dad was and still is a good man. He lives in Florida, but he
Mine too.
Oh, did he? Okay, yeah. Well, they might know each other as far as we know. My dad went to a historically Black college and played college basketball. So John and Julius, my dad played point guard, which is what got me into sports. And he served in the Army. And when he came back, his first plane trip was to Chicago because that's where the Harlem Globetrotters used to play back in the 60s. And his first plane trip ever, besides being in the service, was to fly to Chicago to try out for the Harlem Globetrotters. And so sports and education have been a big part of my life. Assemblywoman, to your point, it is instrumental in terms of us addressing this racial wealth gap. And I would tell you, it's, John, I'm going to come back to you as the power forward. I'm going to take a pivot here on it, man. You have become an entrepreneur. And that's not easy, right? To think about how you go out and become part of a business. Some people try to do it too soon. They're not ready. I'd love to hear kind of as you've made that mental shift from making moves on the court to making moves in the business world as an entrepreneur. What advice would you have for young, aspiring Black entrepreneurs that may have had challenges or it may not have been easy? What would you have them think about? What are those 2 or 3 things that you've done to get you to this point and be ready for the future that they might be able to take away?
Well, first of all, let's touch on that word pivot that you're talking about, because in 2020, most businesses had to learn how to pivot.
Yeah.
Myself included. I went from when things started slowing down, even with the work where I was doing MSG, I had to dibble and dabble into like some sanitizing products. Those sanitizing products I ended up selling to Syracuse University. They bought over like, a huge, I don't want to get into the numbers. They bought a huge shipment from me and my crew, and literally it made up for all the money I didn't make in my other areas for 2020. So just learning how to pivot, figuring out what's going on, what's needed is always supply and demand, right? And if you're around the old saying, if you're around 9 guys who are doing successful, 9 women who are doing successful, then you'll probably end up being successful yourself. So I try to stay in those circles. Like Julius was saying, I think that's admirable what you did at age 19, Julius, to clean house. I did it at age 22, but to do it at age 19 is incredible. But it saved you a lot of money, a lot of headache. I know it saved me a lot of that, and it's just good to hear that the way you're talking and about thinking about saving and all that. The other word is making sure you're networking and making sure within that network that you have are all respectable, reputable people, because it takes forever to build that reputation. As you know, Brian, Assemblywoman, Alicia, and Julius, you're still in the throes of it because you're still a active player. So I know you're dibbling, dabbling in business, but watch, once you retire, you're going to be really into the business world. But if you don't, that respect and your reputation is everything. And if you let one bad business deal or a person sully your name, sometimes you can never recover.
That's right.
You can, so I always make sure that whatever business I'm in, the person I'm in business with has as much money as me or more, and they also have their skin in the game like myself. So it's not just my money being at stake, and if the deal goes awry, I'm the only one sitting there, hurting, and everyone else is like, all right, on to the next deal. So, so that's a huge word. And the last word I would say, and we spoke about it a little bit earlier, is just being humble, because if you approach every deal and every business transaction or whatever with some humility and not trying to be greedy and just trying to get with what was promised to you and making sure that happens, then the deal will always work out. It will always work out. But I'm still learning. I'm 47 years old, and I try to surround, most of my business partners are in their 60s, and they're teaching me a lot, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can, because they're living pretty comfortable, and I want to live just as comfortable as them. So I'm trying to do everything they're doing. I mean, everything. Whatever they're doing, I'm kind of doing it too. You know what I mean? And I'm just trying to make sure that I know I don't know everything about business, But the things I do know, Brian, is I know how to follow the right people. And I don't always need to be the leader. I don't always need to be the man. But if I'm in the right group, like I keep saying, then I'm always going to be in the in the mix. And as long as you're relevant and in the mix, you can make some things happen. And that's all you can ask for.
I love it, man. I love it, John. I think about playing ball, man, when maybe it's a turnover and you gotta get back, right? And that's a little bit of what happened in 2020 through COVID is
yes.
The unexpected happened. And, like coach always told us, get back on the break. Don't make it easy for the other team. Well, we had to get back on the break. And there were things that we probably would have preferred not to do in our business that you had to respond to. And that positioned you to be able to thrive. So you had to survive and able to thrive. And I think that's just really good for people to hear. Julius, I'm gonna come to you, buddy. I got to tell you, I was reading and learning about some of the investments you've made in yourself. As one of the best players in the world, you obviously make an investment on the court, but you've done some things off the court. It's like Coach says, sometimes you got to show up to practice a little early, and you're doing that. The example I would give is the work you did in terms of going back, and I think it was, immersing yourself in one of the courses at Harvard. And not a lot of people did that, Julius, just to be candid for this group to know, and for you to take the time, right? Right in the middle of when you're trying to invest in yourself on the court. Why did you do that? What was that about, right? What was that about for you to make that investment? And would you, not everyone can do that, but are you suggesting others should invest in themselves to be better through that?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, as a young Black man, how many people can say that they took a course at Harvard to start off? And for me, that was just for me a cool thing to have under my belt to say I did. And speaking to that point, John had talked about figuring out what you want to do after. And for me, the big thing about going to that was, first off, I hate being away from my family in the off season. So for me to go up there for a week or whatever it is, and be away from my family, be away from my son and my wife, was already a big thing. But I would say the big thing was, for one, I had a great professor, and we went over a lot of material of just big companies or different scenarios of businesses, whether it'll be Disney, whether it be individuals who we look at as businesses, The Rock, LeBron, Jay-Z, just multiple different people and businesses, and what makes them successful, and the risks and challenges that they have to go through and take, but how big the reward can be on the other side. So for me, I've learned a lot from that course. Just about how things operate on the business side, what makes certain companies successful. And then I think the really unique part of the whole experience was, as a basketball player, you can kind of get caught up in your own little bubble of your views and your circle of things. And what was really cool was I got to get out of that bubble and really experience and just intermingle with people from all different aspects of different businesses and different parts of the world, whether it was music artists, CEOs or heads of Fortune 500 companies, different athletes, managers, just all different types of people from different walks of life. And I got to really see and hear different perspectives of things, of what makes them successful or how they operate in certain situations. So it really opened my eyes to a lot of different things that I can really carry to this day, whether that's, different ways of how to lead my team and the individuals I'm around, figuring out what I want to do off the court when I'm done playing, and how to approach different type of situations in business and stuff like that. So it was a really cool, unique experience. And I think I want to do it again, honestly, just just because of the connections that you received there, and how much I learned. So it was an amazing experience for sure.
Listen, I'm smiling because first of all, I love this, that you were willing to invest in yourself. It's like 2-a-days, it don't sound good in the beginning, but you feel a lot better when it's done,
Absolutely.
and you got yourself in game shape, right? We talk about being in game shape. You are mentally getting in shape,
Mm.
right? And that is, no one can take that away from you, Julius.
Absolutely.
And I think the advice that you're giving me and others that are watching us is invest in yourself, right? Because when you can do that, there's just certain things people can't take away. And I'll come back to the Assemblywoman because I think we have a great opportunity to hear, as Julius gave a very specific example on what we can do for ourselves. Assemblywoman, I just have a question in terms of, as we think about the work that we need to do in New York and beyond, what 1 or 2 examples would you give on specific things that we might be able to do to improve racial equality and really access to opportunities in the Black community?
Brian, I wish I could say 1 or 2, but I have about 5. So I'll try to just go through it quickly, which I think everyone can relate to on this panel and who are watching. But when it comes to changing, as a legislator, we're able to implement legislation to change reforms when it comes to criminal justice. Because one of the things that we know that we've all like so-called made it, but for a lot of the reform, a lot of the criminal justice system needs to be changed. And I think this body, this time, we've been able to do a lot of that. Last year, a lot of marching around Black Lives Matter. But what good is it if we're still in the same hole the next year and we're not looking at reforms for when our men and women come home? What kind of opportunities are there for them to rebuild their lives? And that's important for our communities. When it comes to banking, I happen to represent a district that is heavily homeowners. Laurelton, Springfield, Rosedale have some of the largest homeowners in the country, Black people. And we need to make sure that the banks are doing right by our communities when it comes to lending. And when it comes to smaller businesses, we have a huge minority women Black enterprise business model in the state of New York. But what we find is access to capital is an issue for a lot of our businesses. So when it comes to, it's a whole host of reforms that need to take place on the state and the federal level to make sure that we're equaling the playing field for all of us. And I think that sometimes, Black History Month is a great time to highlight these issues, but for Brian, for Julius, Jonathan, and myself, we know we wouldn't get here if there weren't certain opportunities afforded to us. So we have to make sure, or I have to make sure my colleagues as legislators, we have to level the playing field, because if you think about home ownership for Black people was kind of a far off thing because of redlining. Government policies were in place that did not allow for this to happen. So it's my responsibility to make sure that we're leveling the playing field, like I said earlier, to make sure that people can buy a home. Like my daughter, when she finishes college in May, I'm sure she'll be back in the house with me. But I would have rather if she could have, when we talk about wealth building, making sure that our young people who go to college and incur debt have opportunities to remove their debt quicker so they could be homeowners, because as we know, homeownership is a pathway to wealth in a lot of our communities. So there are several layers that I believe we need to work on, whether it's sports or banking or education, that the doors are open for all of us to be successful. And a lot of that comes with legislation. And as a 6-year assemblywoman, I feel like in the first couple of years, I should have known everything, but I realize it is a process. It takes constant renewal and movement to pass legislation, to right the wrongs of the past, to put us all on the same level.
No, I think that's spot on. And look, we've got a little time left. And so I'm just going to reflect on what I've heard on a few examples and just bring it home for JP Morgan Chase, right? If you talk about home ownership, as my colleagues on the panel now know, home ownership rates in the Black community are pretty much the same or a little bit worse than they were in the 1960s.
Yep.
Okay. We've got work to do, right? You think about entrepreneurship, John, and the work that you're doing. Many of the Black entrepreneurs in America that really want to grow and prosper and create opportunities in their communities. Most Black businesses today are less than 5 million in revenue. Many of them only have one employee. We can do work to grow those and create more opportunities for more prosperous Black businesses. Julius, I think about the work that you're doing around learning and education. At JP Morgan Chase, one of the things we're doing is we're thinking about what we call lifelong learning. And that's investing in our over 255,000 employees and creating pathways, working through advancing Black pathways, which is a fantastic center of excellence in our Black community that we have inside the firm, on how do we get employees to go and upskill, right? Maybe they have a job today, but we want to create a path for them to have a career. And so from tuition reimbursement to very specific jobs that tie to the future of work, we're trying to build that out at JP Morgan Chase. And that's a lot, Julius, of what you make me think about in terms of how you invested in yourself. So we all are on this journey together. And before we run out of time, I'm just going to pause and see if there's anything else that the panel would like to share before we wrap up. I think we've covered some really important topics from leaders that in their own right are leaving their own mark. So I'm just going to pause and see if there's anything else you'd like to share before we celebrate a great conversation together.
I just want to say how, to you guys, just how fortunate and blessed I am just to be on this panel. A lot of things I've talked about is learning and education. And just through this experience, I've learned and I've been educated a lot on a lot of things. So I just want to say thank you guys for spending this time with me. This is huge, and I hope I can do this more, man. This is great.
Awesome.
Julius, thank you. I learned so much about you today, my brother. Taking the class at Harvard, wow. That is very, very impressive. That's better than being named an all-star. You took a class at Harvard. That is incredible. And keep ascending. I know Coach Tibbs personally. I know how hard he's working you guys. I know how much he's demanding. I know how he's attention to detail, and he's just going to make you guys keep getting better and better and better. Just keep buying in. And I'm just so happy for the whole city's buzzing, man. So it's really dope to be a part of it again, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just want to say, so my brother is a die-hard Knicks fan. So the fact that I'm on here, I get points that will last a long time. So Julius, I have to rub this in his face, and for Jonathan, I forgot to say that I was a power forward in college.
There we go. Got a whole team
I totally feel like everything prepared me for this. It was D3, but everything prepared me to be where I am today. The teamwork, the drills, the work ethic. So I commend you on your careers. I commend Jonathan being an entrepreneur. I think it's a field that all of us, being your own boss and having your own business is what a lot of us want to be. Like a 9-to-5 is for some people and entrepreneurship is for other people. And there's a way that I think that in our communities, we can have it all. And just being here with you all has been a true honor. I can't wait to rub it in my brother's face. I really can't. But thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad we could do it. Look, between the Assemblywoman, John, Julius, myself, we just need one more. We got a 5. We can run. We can run. Look, guys, this has been a ton of fun. On behalf of the New York Knicks organization, MSG, JP Morgan Chase, we owe you a debt of gratitude for taking the time out of your day to share your stories, inspire the nation, and get folks excited about what we're doing in Black History Month and to make more Black history. So enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.